Let's grab a couple of chats.
Question from Greg Dubay. For the fathers of the show, I just found out I'm going to be a dad. What is the best advice you received when you were expecting your first child?
Ooh. The best advice. Yay, Ben! Here's what I will say. Ignore the people who go, kiss your life away. Those people are morons.
Yes.
It's a blast, and honestly, especially if you know if you do it right, it's difficult, but it's I hate it when people do it, like, wait till you have kids. Then when people say, I used to love being single and not having, I'm like, what? I wouldn't trade you would trade your kids for nights at the bar? So I would just say the only thing I can say is ignore That's advice. Good. But as far as proactive advice,
I have one that was really, really helpful. I didn't know.
Don't shake them.
Well, don't shake them too much.
Don't shake them, and don't leave.
You can. Yes. Shaking them for 3 minutes does make them stop crying.
It does. Yeah, it does.
One of the things, like
Gerald Lullaby.
Yeah, mom, it just bonds with the baby so quickly. Like there's this unbelievable expression of love from mom to baby, right? And dads, typically that takes a little bit of time.
Yes.
Of course, you love them and they're your children, and it's wonderful and it's the best emotion. But then over a little bit of time, and it took a few months with me, like you really start to bond in almost the same way. You would almost compare it like, is something wrong with me? Like I love this child with everything I have, but mom seems to be willing to like lay down and die right now for no reason.
Newborns are boring.
Yes.
That's the truth.
They are. They're like an intense puppy with no personality.
There's only so much you can do, and you're not adding much. Actually, as a matter of fact, Pops Crowder used to tell me, they said, it just, once you get to the point where you can teach them and they start talking and they're like little sort of knowledge sponges, he says that's when it gets really exciting. It's really fun.
Super fun.
Like when they're 18.
Yes. Well, in the California school system.
That's right.
Well,
I think dads, your job is to at least introduce an element of what the real world is going to be like.
You got to prepare
Life's
them.
a kick in the nuts.
Yeah.
And sometimes I got to be a bigger kick in the nuts because I love you that much.
Right.
That's what I say to my son. This is not a democracy.
Right.
I'm your dad, not your friend.
Yeah.
I'm the real world.
I will hurt you more than the world.
Well, for me, it's like say you're 9 years old, time to cast you in the wild with a match and a spear.
Yes.
Okay.
See what happens.
Is it 3 days or 3 weeks?
It's the test of manhood where you better walk up and you have to slap the bear.
You got to slap
bear.
the bear.
Some Native American tribes, they'd slap the bear as a test of manhood, and of course, they had a dramatic population decline.
Don't slap the bear.
And very fat bears. Really, it was weird.
Unless the bear's sleeping.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and don't play with what appeared to be abandoned bear cubs. Just so you know.
But fatherlessness that's the epidemic, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think 70% of suicides are attributable to kids who have no father, and the crime rate and everything else. So
fatherlessness again is a direct byproduct of social engineering and that wave of feminism in the 60s, that you don't need a man. And by the way, you don't need a man to be a woman without to live by yourself. Of course you don't. And a man doesn't need a woman, just to be clear, if you don't want to get married. To raise children, you do need a man. And to raise children, Dad, you do need a woman.
Yeah.
That's a fact. Now, if you don't introduce children into the equation, sure. I mean, unless something goes bump in the night, or
you can
unless
be
you need furniture moved
your entire life. Go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that comes from this myth. And I mean, I remember when I was a kid, so there was Seinfeld and Friends.
Yeah.
And I always liked Seinfeld, and I didn't like Friends, and here's why. Seinfeld, everyone was awful. And you laughed because you knew that there was a part of you that was awful. But it never told you that these people were anything other than petty and awful. When you tune into Friends and you had Jennifer Aniston's character, and this may seem inconsequential, but again, take into mind the ratings that would take place back then in the tens of millions, right? And Jennifer Aniston is saying, I'm going to have a baby and I don't need or want a dad. And Ross Geller, the father, is trying to take an active role. She says, get away, you nerd. Right. I was going, oh my gosh, we're supposed to praise that as brave. That's a horrible person. On Seinfeld, isn't it hilarious, the worst that humanity has to offer? What is evil to me is when you subvert when they shall call evil good and they shall call good evil. And I know it seems like one of those things, like why do you hate Friends so much? Because they tried to make it seem as though it was righteous. And you have a lot of young girls saying, I can be like Rachel. I don't need a man. You do. You do. That child does.
That was also a $20 million apartment. Nobody could afford that.
Yeah, absolutely not.
It was
Not in
based on a lie.
California.
No, well, certainly not in that's
Not
right.
under Mr. Newsom.
It was a soundstage in California, but it was supposed to be New York.
New York.
Yeah.
Did you ever live in New York?
I did live in New York.
Yeah. You see that apartment in
For
Friends, you're like,
years.
well, this is $18,000 a month.
Lord.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure you get that as a geologist.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, the Friends occupied the entire top floor.
Yeah, exactly.
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
They had the penthouse, but it looked like it was rustic.
Yeah.
Did you? I guess we got. I just gave you the advice that you gave me, so it's probably.
No, I
no
think
one
it's
gave
true.
you
I think Gerald nailed it too. Early on, you think, "Gee, I'm not connecting like my wife."
Yeah.
And then it grows. and
Everything's
grows
okay.
and grows.
Don't worry about
Yeah,
it.
don't worry.
I this is going to sound a little sappy, but I knew you did your job because I saw you hug your son
Oh,
out there. That's a big deal. I hug my dad.
Yeah.
And
I still embarrass him. I kiss him in public. He doesn't.
Oh,
like,
geez.
yeah, as long as he doesn't suck your tongue.
He gives me a face palm, and he.
Yeah, exactly.
That's for
You got to kiss
enlightenment.
him. I kiss my son.
Yeah.
No, but it's so important
Italian.
that
I am Italian.
daughters and sons learn masculine love. It really matters. That physical, different love than what they get from mom. It's
Yeah,
really
this is also the problem too. Is the left subverts it where they go, "Oh, so men hugging or kissing? See, there's a little gay in everybody." No, there's nothing gay about masculine love, about masculine show of affection between a father and a son, or a father and a very good friend. Right? A hug. There's no. So they want to say, "See, that's a little bit gay," and so that's where we're going with this. And
you're
then we
tamping
get
it
to-
down.
Fathers are also characterized as patriarchal and sort of tyrannical, right?
Right.
But a father who's in a position of authority is a good example and a protector and a provider.
Yes.
So to cast a father, and this is what you see on the left, as a tyrannical figure, and there are tyrannical fathers,
Of course.
and but at the end of the day, a good father is someone who you want to emulate,
Right.
someone who you look up to, someone who is your hero.
Yeah.
That's the idea, and that's a very important thing to
And
do.
that's the problem with a lot of religion, right?
Yeah.
Is it has this punitive, damning father above, and that's what people think the relationship is. You don't want that relationship with your kids at all.
No.
Right. No.
He said, "Call me father."
And
he
there's-
said,
No,
"Call
but
me."
I will
he
say-
said, "Call me
God loves
Abba,"
you.
which is the most intimate word you could create.
But
His words, not mine.
there's also something about religion. Let's just take the Judeo-Christian ethic. If you mess up, there are certain laws to the universe,
Right.
And the price is going to be a bitch.
Yeah.
It's going to the earth in a way will open up and swallow you whole.
Yeah.
You can pretend it won't, but there is something called objective reality.
Yeah.
And so that's the other thing a father's there for, to say, hey, these are the parameters.
Yeah.
At your great peril, do you decide that these rules don't apply to you, little Lord?
My great
Fauntleroy?
peril was my dad's wooden spoon.
I was going to say.
Because hands were made for love, I could
depends.
transfer it to the spoon.
Yep.
Yes,
Depends
and
on where
boy,
he
was it
puts
a
that
transfer.
spoon. It depends on where he puts that.
I was going to say,
Okay.
Brian, that's why God says that I lay before you life and death. Choose life. Like
Right.
I'm showing you what will lead to your death and what
Yeah.
will lead to you being unhappy. You may think in the moment you're going to be really happy and that it's going to lead to life, but ultimately it will not. And I'm giving you that. Don't choose death.
That's why.
It's your
That's
choice.
why you said that to me when I mouthed off to my geography teacher. I lay before you life and death, but I was like, but they're both wooden spoons.
Yes. Which one would you like?
Well, one was more of a spatula, really.
It's a choose your own spanking book.
I know.
All right.